Hello, hello. If you're already here watching or later to our Monday Instagram Live, I'm waiting for Justine to join. For those of you who haven't met Justine, we've been talking maybe a few months ago already about Ayurveda. And today I'm very interested to hear a little bit more on all her offerings. So if you're interested, join this talk. I'm going to let her in now. There it is. It should work, and it's funny that it only wants to have it 2 times. I may say that every week. Okay, here she is. Hi, Justine.
Hello.
Thank you for joining today's Monday Live.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad I saw you at the yoga festival and we thought, hey, let's do another live together.
Yes, actually, it's really great to be able to talk, to have this channel as well. So actually, if somebody would like to know more, we can send them to the recording and listen in a little bit of what we have talked about. So thank you for those who are joining live here today. Feel free to ask questions all the time if there's anything coming up. So we met at the yoga festival and I said, like, yes, you are coming next week to the studio, and you will next weekend, and you will have a pop-up. So we have had them already before. We had students coming to do consultations with you, Ayurveda consultations, and also massages, which are really great. We talked about that a little bit more last time on all the offerings you have. But maybe what we wanted to particularly talk about today was really, what is an Ayurveda consultation, right? What does it mean for somebody who is interested in Ayurveda but not really understand, like, why do I need to be consulted about something? So
that's a really good question, Nicola. And I sometimes think about how can I convey this to people that they actually don't have to know anything about Ayurveda to come for a consultation. That's my job. That's really my job to know. And we could start with how I use Ayurveda as a lens. So I'm looking at if something is cold, is it wet, is it dry, through the lens of Ayurveda. And then we can look at all of our local Finnish foods and lifestyle through that lens, because we don't have that traditional system in the Western world really to look at things if in the elements, if they're cold or wet or dry or whatever. Yeah, that tradition we had possibly, but I think we've lost a lot over the years. A lot of books were burned, people were burned, a lot of that information is gone. So I love that living tradition in India of Ayurveda, as it is the oldest traditional system of traditional medicine in the world. And we can see through its living lineage that it works. We can see that the herbs are working, for example. And I can look at our local plants and foods through that lens and see how they work for us and for each individual. So some people are going to need more cooling foods. Some people are going to need more heating foods. And we have both of those in our here. So it's easier to go to the food shop and know, for example, what's going to suit you better.
Absolutely, yeah. And to understand this, right, that we as humans, we are part of the earth, right? We are part of the elements. Because maybe some people don't even think that far. What do I have to do with all of that? But we are a complete integral part of everything else. And that's why it works, right?
Exactly. So we tend to separate ourselves from nature more and more. We put ourselves in these boxes and in these tight shoes and sort of pretend that nature is not there. But it still affects us. Even when we're inside and we have our heater on in our house, we can still see the nature of the vata element, which is very cold and dry, how it affects our body, even if we're trying to protect ourselves from it the entire winter. Maybe some of us don't go outside a lot because we get so cold so easily, but we're still affected. We get dried out by that element. We feel cold from that element even in our warm Finnish houses.
Yes, yeah. Definitely. Yeah, we try to cover it, right? Yeah, my house is warm, so it's okay. But it's interesting because I was yesterday sitting with a group of people who just graduated our teacher training, and we are all together 11. And then I said, like, oh, I'm feeling chilly all morning. And then I was so surprised, or not surprised, that those who are highly having vata in them were saying the same. There was 2 or 3 more who said like, yeah, I also feel chilly all morning. And then there's these pitta people who are like, no, I'm not cold. That was really interesting to observe.
Yeah, another one of those doshas is pitta, which is the fire element. And it is honestly true that it might be a little easier for them to live in Finland because they have internal heat. So you might see those who are like, the first day of sun in the spring, they're outside in shorts and sandals, they're really like, they're feeling hot already in their body. They're really ready to let go of that winter and move on and have that heat as part of their natural constitution just shine, and I look at them, I'm like, I'm not ready for that yet. I still have my gloves on.
Yeah. I think it's important to understand this because the temperature is the same for everyone, right? You're in a room, the temperature is same, but everyone perceives the temperature differently. It's so fascinating.
It is, and that's a good how we could talk a little bit about the Shirodara treatments that I do, where I do the warm oil over the head. So I don't even measure the temperature of the oil other than by like a finger test because it doesn't matter. I've measured it before because everybody feels the oil differently. I have to just measure it with the hand and then ask them how it feels for them because what temperature feels hot for somebody feels cold for another. Completely different, right? So there's no point in measuring that oil in that way. So the other element we can talk about is the kapha element, which is cold and it's heavy. So that's the spring season. And that's, for example, when I said for some people, they need warming foods. So kapha needs some warming foods too, because they're cold and they need that, maybe some spiciness even in their foods, that invigoration, because they need movement. Otherwise that wet and cold's just going to be stagnant and really stuck there. So that's where we're looking at those Finnish mustards, for example. Those can be good for those people where someone that has a lot of fire element, they're pouring mustard and ketchup on everything, and that's just like really increasing that fire element more in a negative way.
Yes, yeah. I think this is so important that to look at each and every one individual and what they need. And that is exactly what the Ayurveda consultation is doing, right? You are finding out what this person needs, and not one fits everyone.
Yes. So the consultation also includes pulse reading. So I'm reading the pulse and also looking at the tongue. The tongue is like a map that shows what's happening inside the body. So I really love doing the tongue diagnosis as well. I always make sure I do that with coupled with the pulse reading. And we can really see how those organs are functioning. Maybe if the liver is having a little issues, or maybe the lungs, for example. I can see sometimes that the mineral contents through the tongue, like is the person, absorbing their minerals and vitamins, if they're supplementing or eating organic foods, are they actually absorbing those? We can see if there's a lot of blood toxins, for example. Some people have more toxins in the fat system and some people have more in the blood system. So we can see that by looking at the tongue. So someone who's a good tongue reader can see those things. And that's why I always say, if people say, well, I want to go for an Ayurveda consultation, but I'm, halfway across the world, and we can do online, of course. And I can look at the tongue, for example, through an online, because I can't do the pulse, right? Yeah. But tongue can really help me with diagnosis.
That's so interesting. What do you see in the tongue? How does the tongue look like who has something going on? Can you explain that?
So I did mention a few things about what we see on the tongue there through the minerals and the blood toxins or the fat toxins. Or I can see, for example, I might say to someone like, oh, you're having some back pain in the lower back or in the upper back. And they're like, oh, how did you know that? But I can see that by looking at the tongue as well. Parts of the tongue are related to parts of the body, and we can see if there's pain issues there by looking at the tongue. Yeah, or I can see if someone's been eating way too much sugar. That's definitely one that I can see. Sometimes I have to, are you eating a lot? We can see also medication. A lot of medication use shows up on the tongue as well. So I always ask people to throw on medications, of course, but then, I can tell them often that I can see that it's impacting their body negatively because we can see it showing up on the tongue as well.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting.
Hi.
Your life is in your tongue, and you cannot hide it. And you know what I really like about that as well, nowadays it's a big thing, everything is measured, like you can measure every level of minerals and vitamins and everything in your body, and you can, I think this is great, this is very good to have. But I really like this part where you can, it's actually the body telling you and not a machine, as much as the machines are great probably but for me this is more like, yeah, I feel more home with that than having some machine telling me what minerals I miss or whatever is going on with me, because then I don't know, maybe the next moment I would feel different. And an Ayurvedic consultant actually sees you as a person as a whole, and I think I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'm also looking, at the emotional, not just the physical. So I'm asking people about their mental health as well and their family health history there, because it's all connected. I'm not just looking at physical ailments. Also, when I'm thinking about herbs to recommend for people, I don't recommend the same herb for the same ailment. So I'm really looking at the emotional and the spiritual level there too. Like, what plant is going to work better for that person? Are they already really open in the heart? Are they really closed off? That's going to really change which plant I'm going to give them, even if we're just basically first looking for something as far as blood pressure. I'm going to look, like I said, is it like a heart closed kind of issue there, or are we already open? And that will change the herbal recommendation. And for example, sleep is such a huge thing these days. People aren't sleeping very well. Our regular allopathic doctors have very little training on sleep, unfortunately, but we can look through the doshas, which dosha is possibly out of balance and making the sleep suffer. Are we having a hard time falling asleep? Is it that type of sleep issue? Or is it that we're waking up certain specific times of the night? Those can also be related to these different Ayurvedic doshas. So that tells me a lot when people can tell me what kind of sleep issues that they're having, and we can get to the root cause. Why is that happening? People always really stress, and of course it often is stress related, but it can also be an imbalance of particular doshas as well, trying to be what I call the boss. Some doshas will try to be the boss, and those will affect your sleep negatively.
Yeah, it's really. Last week I talked about sleep actually, but at that level where just getting rid of exhaustion. And so if somebody wants to listen to that, but then when you feel like this doesn't work, your restorative yoga, the tips and tricks, what to do, which is also coming from Ayurveda, to have a warm milk in the evening, then it's good to get an Ayurveda consultation and to know what herbs, what can I add. And when you're fixing the lifestyle in general, like you said, the sleep will also fix itself probably, or most likely.
Important that you mentioned the yoga and the Ayurveda together. So traditionally they are a union. They're literally the science of life. And there's this yoking or union between yoga and Ayurveda, and they should be together. But in the Western world, we focus really much on the physical, like the asana. People like to move. They want to do physical postures. That's usually where they start. But we should really have the two together, as they are fitting together, those puzzle pieces. And I do see Ayurveda does work better when people do have a yoga practice already. It's easier for them to implement the Ayurvedic tools in there as well, and so for example, if somebody comes for consultation and they're not moving their body at all, it's going to make my job harder. I have to really encourage them to try to get some movement there. And I would, of course, try to find what suits the person the most. So there's different types of movement that suit particular doshas as well. So for example, this fire element that we were talking about, the people out in the shorts already on the first day of spring, their nature tends to be really hot. So like cold and cooling waters can be really beneficial for them. Swimming could be, really ideal. And we do see that a lot, where I'll ask, like, what is your favorite type of movement? And often somebody that does have quite high pitta dosha, like, oh, I like swimming, I really love how that feels. So they're attracted to what balances them. But we have the flames of pitta are so unbalanced, the person is like, I love running marathon under the hottest day in the sun, of summer. And it's like, okay, well, that's the negative attracting the negative, that's really putting balance by. So we can what kind of exercises, body movements, and what time of days are even the most suitable for each person. So it's such an intricate system that I have studied for so long that it comes very easily out through me, and the client doesn't need to really know anything about Ayurveda because I'm just telling them, okay, well, this time of day and this type of exercise are more suitable for you. And I always explain why. I find I've had so many Ayurveda consultations in my life, and there's always so much mystery. They don't really tell you why. They just say, do this, do that. And there's no
good to know why.
Exactly. Or these herbs and you get pills and you don't know what they are. I always explain what the herbs are and why I'm recommending them, for example. Yeah.
And is the consultation also based on a lot of questions, right? So you are asking questions, and according what the answers is, how does that look like?
Yeah. So when I have make the booking online, there's an intake form, and if people can write there a little bit about their health history, that's going to help give us more time during the consultation. So I can copy paste all of that into their plan, because I'm making a plan as we talk. I'm putting together a plan. I have the computer at the side. I'm really with the person, and I have really figured out how to use the computer, the side tool, to make sure it records all the information there. So the client doesn't have to remember anything I'm saying, because I'm putting the whole plan together for them. And I copy paste that information from their intake form, and it's in there in the notes. So I also have that as a history if we need to look back at it. If somebody messages me later, like with some questions, I can look back and see their health history. And so the basic questions would be like starting with age, when is their birthday. I also like to look at astrology sometimes with people, explain some things too. Sometimes people's birth constitution of Ayurveda, these doshas, really plays in with their astrological chart as well. It's their sun sign, their moon sign, and their rising. So that's always interesting if someone's into astrology and they want to go in that direction with me as well. That can be a fun way. And we can see those matches there. But yeah, some other questions would be the family health history. Like, did your parents have any diseases? How are they doing? Because we do inherit a lot through the family as well. So I think it's really important to talk about the ancestors in that way. And we have to sometimes break away from that too. It doesn't mean that we are going to have those health issues, because we might have a completely different lifestyle. For example, we're probably working on ourselves a lot. That's why we're there for the consultation. We're probably working on ourselves already and don't want to fall into the same health issues that our parents have. So recognizing that they're there, but how to prevent them, because Ayurveda is a lot about prevention.
Yeah, exactly. I think that should be much more of a bigger thing, that prevention is the key, and not then healing. Of course, healing is important, but not waiting so long. That has been my life's mission. Preventing before it gets worse, because it's much harder to fix than to prevent.
I always try to encourage people to come before they have really chronic issues, because it's a lot easier also for my job and to help them with those if they haven't been going on chronic like 10 plus years. It's definitely quite easy to reverse things if they haven't been going on a long time. And that's when I really do work with the local plants a lot, because a lot of our local plants work really well on these sort of removing obstacles in the body. But when things are more chronic in the body, like 10 years, then sometimes I need to really look at the Ayurvedic herbs, because they are going to be more removing of these sort of deep-seated issues stored in the body, because they tend to be a little stronger. Our Finnish wild plants are a little more mild.
Yeah. Well, that's great. So you are also like this, I almost say herb witch. That's what people think of you. So in the summers you go out and then you pick herbs, right?
I do. So a big part of my summer is collecting herbs and making medicine. I make a product line under my PRASAD name, the PRASAD Nordic Ayurveda. So there's many different tinctures, herbal tinctures. I do herbal oils, which I use some of those in my treatment room as well. I would really love to use all of them, but I would really need an army of people helping me make those. And personally, of course, for our home, I'm making all kinds of herbal jams and vinegars and our body oils and lotions, and the real classic traditional herbal good witch. That's me for sure. I'm definitely living that life. and have been from a young age. So, I've been really lucky that way that I started really young. And it's just, it hasn't been something I've had to try to incorporate in or struggle with. It just happens naturally.
Amazing, because we have so many herbs growing. We have no idea that they actually would do something special to us. So how can we learn about that? How can we learn about the herbs if somebody would be interested?
Yeah, I have in the springtime, I have classes that I teach where we go out to the Finnish nature and I talk to you about how to identify and how to use those plants, and how to ethically harvest those as well. And that's my favorite class to teach. I teach a lot of different kinds of herbal and Ayurveda classes and yoga, but the plant classes are definitely where I shine the most, and
Nice.
wish we had longer seasons here to do. Yeah, so if you're interested in learning
really great, yeah.
Classes, yeah.
And so now next on Saturday you will be in Helsinki, and at the studio you're creating like a little PRASAD pop up. I know there is already a few people booked, so there's not that many spaces left, but you do the consultation and also the marma massage.
Yeah, so you can choose between the 1 hour Ayurveda consultation or the 1 hour body treatment, where I do the marma points, like acupressure points on the body, and then it's a lot of warm oil that I'm using in the massage. So you get that really holistic treatment. So it's definitely more like medical when we're doing the acupressure, but then you're getting the feel good with the warm oil massage on top of that. So you're really getting a good combo of the two together. And Saturday, I only work Saturdays at Nicola's at Purna Yoga. So if you want to see me on a Saturday, that's your chance.
Yes. And you are otherwise in Helsinki on Mondays
and Thursdays. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I will link your handle there as well. So if somebody's interested to go and see you also at another time, very welcome to just get in touch with you. So I think this is something which, I'm the kind of person, I try out a lot of things. And for me, Ayurveda has always been very passionate. And that consultation I did when we met maybe this is quite a long time ago, but I still feel, this is something which you always have with you. You will always think about it, because that's kind of life in itself. So it's not like that when you do a consultation and then you forget about it and you do something new, but it's more of like it continues all the time. Yeah.
Really glad you mentioned that, because I do feel like it's a tool that you will always have in your toolkit for the rest of your life. That's really important information. And like I said, I do encourage people to come before they get ill. As prevention, learn the lifestyle and the seasonal and the food and the herbs that are suitable for you now, so you can live a long, happy, disease-free life.
Yes. That's great, especially now in the spring, when luckily we got some light as well, but when it's still cold and wet and heavy, when you talked about the kapha, this is really how it feels now. You need to balance that time.
Yeah, it's come a little early this year, which is nice, because spring feels like it's coming earlier, because sometimes it doesn't come till like April. Yeah.
That's the thing, yes. And we don't want to say anything out too loud, because who knows, it's going to be
who knows
next week. Knock, knock, knock. Okay, Justine. Well, thank you so much for your time. And like I said, if you are interested in any of the consultations or the massages, anyone who's listening, you can go to our website, Purna Yoga Helsinki, or www.purnayoga.fi, and you find a section under our yoga, and it says Ayurveda, Nordic Ayurveda, and there you can find more information about Justine, and then there's also a link to book directly for this. So like I said, there's only 3 places left, I think, so sign up right now. Okay, good. Well then, I wish you everyone a really good day, and Justine, thank you again. And we'll be seeing each other hopefully soon live again.
Okay, see you soon. Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.